Faith with Heather Murdock.
Welcome back to Love, Hope, and Faith. And before we went to break, I was asking you how God changed your dream or adjusted your dream. Remember, you talked about how you told the Lord, if this isn't because you were on a path. Tell us a little bit about the path you were on.
Well, I want to make sure that I'm on the right path, that I've been speaking to women's groups and conferences, women's retreats and so forth, for a number of years.
Yeah.
And, and that's my passion. It's, we talked a moment ago about that we can look back and a lot of times it's only when we look back we can see how God directed our path at the time.
20/20 vision, hindsight.
Yeah, it's so much easier to see. It's so clear. And that sometimes when I meet women, they say, I don't know what my purpose is in life. And so, well, what's your background? What's your training? What's your education? What's your experience? What do you love to do, like cook for people, or love to be with children?
Yeah.
That's a clue.
That's right.
To God's purpose for your life.
That's right.
So I have no doubt. I'm fortunate. I might be a minority. I don't know that I do know my purpose in life with a background in broadcasting and radio and television and public speaking and journalism and so forth. And that is my passion. That is my purpose. And as a writer and speaker and inspirational humorist, and there, the speaking circuit can be grueling. And when I show up, I don't just show up with a Bible and note card. I bring 70 props and visuals and two 50-pound suitcases and gear to set up. So it's quite a production.
Yeah.
In pizzazz. It's a bit of a show. But with a solid message and a lot of laughs. It's hard work.
Yes.
And so sometimes, I've recently thought, do I really want to do this? I want to be out and meet more women and do this. It's my passion and my purpose. But recently, and then with the opportunity with the movie, that I've been questioning and saying, I for many years I used to say, I'm going to be a retreat speaker. I'm going to be a retreat speaker. This was years before I started speaking to groups. And now this is what I'm doing. And then sometimes I think, do I really want to keep doing this? Do I want to do something else? Write the second book and do other things. And so my prayer recently, quite personally and candidly, I just had to come to the Lord and say, Lord, if my dream doesn't match your plan for me, then change my dream.
Amen.
Because I don't want to be caught up, like you said a moment ago. It can be easy to be so driven in our career, our ministry, our purpose.
That's right.
And then so driven in what we have to do to make it happen.
That's right.
That's why I'm not saying, now I'm a movie star. No, whatever God's going to do with this, it might be a one-shot deal, or maybe I'll be in another movie because it's fun.
Yeah.
But being open to that, to listening to God, if He's going to, tweak that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And me, I'm developing my ministry and speaking and all that as well. And I've really noticed that it's quite easy to get so focused on those things, that they can become an idol if we're not careful. So I'm always reminding myself and always, focusing on and being intentional about really pursuing God. And as I'm pursuing God, He reveals the plan. He reveals the way.
Yes.
He reveals the next step, And then I start getting speaking engagements and all these things come together. And I think that's what's been happening in your life, too.
Well, and I think, I'd say it's uncanny, but I know it's God. But still, it's just uncanny. And sometimes people use the phrase out of the blue. But the few times that I really had a meltdown, like, I have no engagement on my calendar for a few weeks or a few months. And am I supposed to not do this?
Yeah.
And I think about quitting.
Yeah.
Though I have no other plan B. But I think about quitting. Within 24 hours, I get a speaking engagement. And it's God telling me, I can open doors for you just like that.
In a heartbeat, that's
right.
In
a heartbeat.
That's right.
And so
I know the plans I have for you.
Yes. And I get frustrated sometimes saying, God, how come in an instant you can just blow this wide open and people will invite me to come, I'll have plenty of engagements and so forth. And I know He can do it in an instant. So the reason why He hasn't done it yet, instead of thinking, letting fear take over and thinking it must be my failure, though I continue to learn lessons and continue to improve, and that is true, but sometimes that unanswered prayer is that God's doing preparation somewhere else that doesn't have anything to do with me. And my job is to is to do my work in preparation and be ready.
That's right, absolutely. And there are many examples in the Bible. In fact, I can think of one right now. Moses, he was, had great influence and authority in Egypt, right? And he was prepared to be a great leader there. And then then he murdered somebody. Remember the story?
Oops.
And then he goes out into the desert for how many years? Was it 40 years or whatever it was? And then he becomes the Moses of the Bible that we read about,
Right.
the great anointed Moses. But look at that time in the desert. That time, he must have thought, God's done with me. I'm useless.
Yeah,
I'm
a
not.
loser.
I'm a loser. I blew it. I murdered somebody. Talk about guilt and sin and shame, right?
Right.
And then God says, no, I'm not done with you yet, for I know the plans I have for you.
Right.
And so that time in the desert, I think, is really a time of growing us,
Right.
and increasing our faith and teaching us, and as you said, preparing other things
Right.
to other people and situations. God's got a big job. Working all things together for good, right? He's
does.
busy.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So that's awesome, Jana, that you were able to realize those things. So if there's someone listening today that is, struggling with trusting God, because in the beginning of the show I said true courage comes from trusting God. What can you say to them if they're struggling in their trust of the Lord?
Well, and you mentioned courage.
Mm-hmm.
And, through my experience and in writing the book, in Fighting Fear, instead of being ashamed that I'm fearful
Mm-hmm.
and thinking, gee whiz, what kind of a Christian am I? I'm walking in fear too often.
Yeah, yeah.
I keep fighting that fight. But I realized I learned a lot about courage.
Mm-hmm.
And courage doesn't mean we're not afraid. Courage means that we step out in faith even though we are afraid. And we talked about many types of fears: fear of the unknown, fear of rejection. It doesn't have to be a super big fear like I was afraid of dying too soon when I was fighting cancer.
Yeah.
And so there are some steps that we can take, to fight fear when it comes against us. And when we're fearful, it might be hard to pray. Because fear is holding us back. But if we can, first and foremost, to call out to God.
Yeah.
Because He says over and over, fear not, fear not.
Yes.
But there are some simple steps that people can take, and one is to avoid negative messages and negative people. Just don't hang around them. People that will say, oh, you'll never get a job, the job market's so bad, no one's going to hire you, or you'll never get remarried or find anybody, or you're a loser. You don't take in those negative
right.
messages.
That's right.
Because what we hear we repeat, and what we hear, so a man, as he thinks in his heart, so he is.
That's right.
So we're taking in those messages. So using this movie example, that I could have, missed an opportunity, a door that God wanted me to go through, if I'd have continued with those messages. Hey, Jana, what are you doing? You've never had drama lessons. You've never been an actress. What do you think you can't do this.
Who do you think you are?
You're going to make a fool of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Your son's going to want to change his name, and I'm thinking all that. But if I'd have fed on that, I would have said no and backed out. Instead, I had to say, you know what, God has a reason for this, and I am going to do my homework and find out how to behave properly on a movie set and try to learn a Texas accent, and so I spoke positive things. So to use that example about being out of a job, you could say, I know our economy is down and jobs are scarce, but I'm going to do my resume, I'm going to get dressed, I'm going to knock on doors, and I'm going to trust God to open that door, and someday I will get that job.
That's right. That's a beautiful picture of us doing our part and Him doing His part. Yeah, meeting there,
Now, the tricky part might be avoiding negative people, and it could be family members.
That's right.
And so, you can go, la, 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 and try not, I'm not listening. But if you can avoid them, be kind, don't be insulting, but try to avoid those negative messages. When I was going through trouble, I had to just surround myself with people that agreed for hope.
That's
that
right.
shared my hope.
That's right.
And my faith.
That's right.
And
speak life. That spoke life into you.
Yes, that spoke life. Because a lot of times the naysayers, I call them hope killers.
Yeah.
And you know who you are.
Yeah.
I don't tell them that. I don't think they deliberately set out to.
Well, they're probably trapped in fear too.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they deliberately set out to kill your hope. But it's just that to them the glass is half empty.
Yeah.
And that's what's in them, so that's what comes out.
Yeah.
So I recognize that I didn't want to be around negative people or negative messages. And for me, that included no drama, TV, movies. Every night we watched comedies. I wanted to be a lighthearted spirit. God, created laughter, and laughter's life's medicine.
Yeah.
And for all the endorphins and all the wonderful things it does for our body, it lifts our spirit. And when we laugh, we feel better. And when we feel better, it's easier to have hope.
That's right.
And
That's right.
if we have hope, it's easier to knock out fear.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to move forward.
Well, I was watching I don't know if you saw this, but recently Kathy Lee Gifford, Frank Gifford passed away, and recently she's on the Today Show. So I saw on Facebook a clip of her sharing her testimony, or Frank's testimony, and she was thanking everybody for all the love and support, all the viewers and friends and family and all that. And then she went on to really proclaim her own faith in Jesus Christ, which I thought was amazing on national TV, and talked about Frank's faith. And she said one key thing that really touched me. She said, as Frank, and he accomplished many things in his life, but that as he got older and his faith in the Lord got deeper, she said his world got smaller as his God got bigger. And I love that, because what it said to me is that the world got smaller, meaning all the fears, the trappings, the issues of life, the issues of man, the hurts, the problems, all those things of the world got smaller as his God got bigger. Isn't that powerful?
Yeah, it
I
is.
love that. And I think that's what you're saying too. You really focus on God, focus on the positives, and all the fears shrink in comparison.
It does.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Because we don't fight fear on our own.
That's right.
It's through Christ.
That's right. Absolutely. I know. Isn't it amazing that we have the God of the universe fighting our battles for us?
What a relief.
I know. We don't have to do
Pressure's
it all.
off.
Exactly. I love the scripture that says, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. So, very good. Good. Well, I think we're going to take a break. I'm getting the signal here. And when we come back, we'll be back for our final segment. And please do come back.